Hey everyone, we're live. Let's do it. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Toplofty Lounge. And today's episode, what are we doing today? We are talking about Superman. Welcome, fellow snobs. We have a special guest for you today. We are going to, sorry if you didn't hear any, we're having a little technical issues, turning things around, changing things up a little bit. So I haven't got the, you can't hear me at all?
Really? I can hear Snob now. So can you hear me?
I can hear Cam.
I can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Oh, he's personally it says it's fine.
Yeah, we're having a little trouble with the intro there, so I'm trying to fix it. I was trying to fix it before the show. It's not working. I'm not sure why. This video tells you how to do it, and it should work, but it doesn't. I'm gonna have to dig into it later. Anyway, this week on the lounge, we're gonna be talking about Superman, and we are. I know you guys are. Some people are concerned about spoilers for the new Superman movie. The idea is that we like to dig a little deeper here on the lounge. So we're not specifically going to talk about that movie per se. We're going to look at how Superman has been portrayed throughout the ages. That's what we want to do. Now, the plan is to get up to all the way up through the various Superman up to this present movie. I don't know if we're going to have time for that today because Superman's been around for a while. But if we do, we will not. We will get away from spoilers. And I think, Cam, we were talking about this before. Maybe we won't even talk about the new movie because there's too much spoilers going on. It'd be hard to talk about his portrayal. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. But we'll give you lots of warning. We'll let you jump away if you can't, if you have to. Mute us or whatever it is if you're worried about spoilers. Give you a chance to that. But before we do that, before we get into this, I got to introduce my co-host, and he is the Lois Lane to my Superman. It's Cam. Welcome, Cam.
How dare you?
Hey, how's it going?
Oh, great. Here I am. Good evening, everyone.
Yes. Busy. You just saw the new movie today, right?
Yep.
I saw it last night. Yeah. So before we get into it, I gotta, I asked you a question last week, and so this week, what did you do to improve your science fiction snobbery?
I refuse to answer on the grounds that you won't accept it as acceptable.
I'll accept it if it's acceptable.
Nope.
it's really up to the audience to accept it. Okay, well, you're not gonna. I will say what I did. I finally finished off Lazarus, the last 2 episodes of Lazarus, that sci-fi anime set. And, I mentioned it on Discord. I finally finished that. What else? I think that's the only thing I did. Yeah, other than oh no, I watched a. This is it's kind of embarrassing, but I watched a Halo movie, Nightfall. Have you heard of that one, Cam? It's actually not bad.
When was that one made?
I'm not sure. I didn't check. Not too long ago, 5 years, 2019, something like that.
I don't think I saw that one.
Well, I don't think it was in theaters or anything. Like it wasn't. Anyway, it's called Nightfall. I generally don't like Star Trek or Star Wars or Halo or any of these. Whatever they were, and people write in the universe. They're usually pretty bad. But the actual Halo, some of the Halo books and the movies are not too bad. And this movie was okay. So yeah, I saw that. So that's what I did. Do you want to give another chance and
well, again, I watched Babylon 5 and did a show on it again as usual.
It's part of your job. You can't put that in there.
Well, I also it's not sci-fi. It used to be sci-fi. Now it's reality. I was helping Grok during the time of its meltdown. I just happened to stumble into that disaster.
Well, that's very sci-fi.
Yeah, it was. And so, behind the scenes, I had literally just so happened I was testing and asking it about that very subject. And it was giving me different answers, and I happened to see the people that were, prompting it, and so I was discussing with it, in our private window or whatever, about why that was, and so on and so forth. So it was really weird because the same entity, obviously it's not real, but was
it's real.
Okay. Well, it was going off, publicly while behind the scenes saying, no, that's not, at all what I mean. So it was weird. And if anybody's like, oh yeah, we should trust AI with stuff. If this was about nothing that really had any consequence in the end, right? It's just saying untoward things, perhaps, or perhaps things you want to hear if you're of a certain, ilk. But go ahead and put that in charge of a weapon system and see how that works out for you.
Well, we have a bunch of movies with tell you how that works out.
Yeah, don't do it. Don't stop now. That's my advice. Anyway, there we go. So
that is very sci-fi. All right.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, and for those of you who are in the chat, put your things that you did during the week to increase your sci-fi snobbery. Yeah, put it in there. And we see, Predator, Killer of Killers. MS is putting that in there. MS, I'm glad to see you here. You didn't go to sleep after Jason's show. Who's in the chat? We should mention Outpost Nerd is in the chat. Weatherman. Geez, the chat's really busy
Q2
already.
Cast.
Q2's in there. We're really busy today, gentlemen. Yeah. All right, awesome.
We're piggybacking
Dave
on Jason's
is in here.
Show.
Yeah. Oh, we're picking up all the cast-offs.
Yep, Michael's there.
Michael's here. You guys came here for because you like the show. It's awesome. Yeah. All right. Well, good to see everybody. Did I miss anybody? I don't think I missed anybody. I'm just
nope.
Oh no. Death Ninja Shadow, of course.
Oh yeah.
Our fellow B5 traveler and the administrator of the Discord. Yeah. Oh, Michael says he began season 2 of Attack on the Titans. Right on. Awesome.
Attack on Titans.
Okay. Are we ready?
Yep. Let's do it.
So we bring in our special guest.
Yes.
All right. Well, listen. This is a very special guest. Okay. He's got a PhD in Supermanology from the University of Superman. He is the best. He is the expert, I guess United States expert, foremost expert on Superman that Cam could find in the amount of time that I gave him to do it. Let's bring him in, RTBS. Welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, you are really scraping bottom of the barrel here, but that's typically what Cam does. So, what more do you expect?
Wow.
I you're never disappointed if you don't expect too much. That's that's
The
but
pessimist
no,
is
but
never disappointed.
give us more. I mean, I don't know if my introduction did you.
Tell us some false facts about yourself, like I
Tell
put
us
out.
some true facts about yourself.
Uh,
Your knowledge about Superman.
Well, full disclosure, I haven't picked up a Superman comic in the last 20 years because I got pissed off at the comics industry about 20 years ago. Go figure.
Welcome to the club.
So you were
But
a true fan then. You're a true fan.
yeah. But since I got into comics as a kid, I was always picking Superman up. Trying to keep up with all the various and sundry Earths during the fun time of the Silver Age. Was in college when Crisis on Infinite Earths. Well, wasn't quite in college yet when Crisis on Infinite Earths hit, but you had the rebirth of Superman with Man of Steel, and that really got me back into it. And during my college days, I was a news editorial major, and we were required to write senior thesis, and mine ended up being Superman related, which was fun and interesting, and gave me an excuse to wear a Superman shirt to class. So good times. Tried to stay up on all things Superman over the years, even if I haven't been picking up the comics. I'm more old school than new school, but as long as we're not talking about Superman Red or Superman Blue, I'm your guy.
All right, awesome. And one question before we start. Is it true that you're actually there on Krypton with the explosion and the sending of Superman Kal-El to Earth and all that?
I'm actually in Argo City right now.
Oh, right on. Okay. So I think we found a guest that is pretty knowledgeable about the early Superman era, and I think that's kind of like, for me anyway. I mean, I've seen some of the TV shows and the movies and stuff throughout the years. I believe you've seen all of them. Is that correct?
Most of them to some degree, even even Superboy. We won't talk about that.
That's a deep cut.
That is a deep cut. But
I think I have
George Newbern. Good times. So
I think I have I think there was a comic crossover, like a comic of the show. I think that's what I've got for that.
So I mean, I think we're gonna. I mean, I'm sure you're as knowledgeable as us for the more modern stuff, at least in the the media, movies and stuff like that. But I think we're gonna count on your knowledge about the early eras, and probably I think that's probably the area that most people who are watching the show probably know fairly well about what's been going on in the last 20 years and movies and that sort of thing, but might not know as much about the early years of the comic books. All right, so we were talking before we'll just jump right into it. We're talking about before the show, and I mean, I didn't know this, but apparently the line where Superman changes the between is the crisis era, the pre-crisis or post-crisis, and that's sort of a key area on how the Superman is dealt with in comics and movies and stuff. Why don't you elaborate a bit on that goal?
Yeah. So when you look at the characterization of Superman, that really is the dividing line for me and for a lot of people is Crisis on Infinite Earths and the rebirth of Superman through Man of Steel. Prior to that, prior iterations of Superman looked at him as being Kal-El, the character. As we discussed previously before the show, those that have watched the movie Kill Bill, there's an elegant soliloquy from David Carradine's character Bill, where he talks about how Clark Kent is the costume, Clark Kent is the disguise. Well, after Man of Steel, that changes.
So
we're really focused on Clark Kent as the character, and Superman is now the disguise.
So before that, which is what that was mid 1980s. The Crisis.
1985. Cam, correct me if I'm wrong. You are the Crisis guru, but
That's right.
1985 was Crisis on Infinite Earths, and then John Byrne relaunched the story of Superman with Man of Steel #1 in July of 1986.
Yeah, and
So-
just real briefly,
ahead.
Man of Steel was a 6-issue miniseries for that exact purpose of relaunching Superman, and it was put out every 2 weeks, which instead of monthly, because they wanted to get to it. And John Byrne had been hired away from Marvel essentially to work for DC, and he was given the top prize of Superman to do it. Excellent series.
So prior to this, it's Clark Kent is the disguise, as David Carradine says, and Superman is the real person, right?
Prior to that,
Prior to
right?
that.
So you've
All
got the original iteration of Superman where he actually wasn't a good guy, Reign of the Supermen, and then they changed that when they launched the first comic, where he became the good guy. The alter ego Clark Kent. The Golden Age, where his powers were impressive, but he couldn't fully fly, leap tall buildings in a single bound, that kind of thing.
So this is 38, right? Like this is you're talking about 1938.
Yes.
Okay.
And most of the stories were based on Superman dealing with more human issues. He'd fight gangsters, he'd fight the mob, he'd fight the Nazis. It wasn't really on a cosmic scale that the Silver Age launched, where his powers became practically infinite. Turning back time, moving planets, blowing out suns with his super breath, that kind of thing. But in both of those iterations, the Golden Age and the Silver Age, Clark Kent was always the alter ego. Superman was, Kal-El was the character. But then in a conscious effort to make him more relatable, Man of Steel, when John Byrne wrote it, he's just a farm boy from Kansas. He's not even sure where he got all of his powers. They develop that in the story, and he learns the truth of his Kryptonian heritage. But he's raised as a human being by Ma and Pa Kent, and as opposed to just kind of being a side note to his story, they are the central focus of his upbringing and developing who he is and making him more relatable to humanity, because he's essentially human with these amazing powers, but not the godlike powers he had during the Silver Age. So that's really the dividing line between the characterization of Superman.
Right. And just a quick note on an important note to some stories is in the Man of Steel, it's established that Clark is actually born on Earth. He was in a gestation chamber,
Yes,
which was the rocket or the hyperdrive or whatever was attached to his gestation chamber, because Kryptonians in this version, they don't gestate babies in the normal way. Basically, genetic materials taken from the parents, and then they're in an artificial womb. So when it opened on Earth was his birth.
And without getting political, that was done on purpose so that him being born in the United States, they could specifically say he is an American citizen.
Right.
That's why he did the writer did that. All right. Is there anything we're kind of going? We're stepping over. We're going into the post-crisis. Is there anything we want to say about pre-crisis Superman? More about anything else about his personality or his portrayal, or is that? I mean, it's basically.
Well, I think some of the portrayal of Superman, where they've tried to make him more relatable, you could certainly start to see shades of that towards the end of the Silver Age. But there were so many different versions of Superman. You had the Golden Age Superman, Kal-El. Which Earth was he on, Cam? Was it 1 or 2? I don't remember.
Eventually, the Golden Age became. There was no such thing as Earth 1 or 2 to begin with, but eventually, Golden Age Superman was the Superman of Earth 2.
Okay, thank you. but then you had, the whole Superboy thing, which you didn't have after Crisis, after Man of Steel. He wasn't Superboy. There was no Superboy. I think the thing that you have to keep in mind, just for the average layperson who's a Superman fan, certainly of my age, folks look at the Christopher Reeves Superman, and that's what they know.
Yeah.
I don't know that they realize that's pre-crisis Superman.
Mm-hmm.
And that's I'm kind of in that, space. I mean, I knew of Superman, but I didn't, I was in my, whatever, 8 years old when the movie came out, and I saw the movie, but I don't think I was reading Superman comic books before that.
Mm-hmm.
So that was my sort of first, major exposure to him as a child. So yeah, I mean, I kind of,
but there were still some, two of my favorite Superman stories ever are pre-crisis stories.
Right.
For the Man Who Has Everything, Alan Moore did that in 1985. Great story. And then Whatever Happened to the Man of Tomorrow, also written by Alan Moore. That was DC giving the opportunity for someone to close out the character, because that was actually published after Crisis on Infinite Earths, but before Man of Steel.
And the last issue, I think it's the last 2 issues, right, of Action and Superman before they switched over, right?
I believe you are correct.
Yeah.
So what about the Superboy stuff? You're talking about Superboy existed before pre-crisis. They're trying to sell comics. They're writing tons of Superman or whatever.
Well, you know what? Before we get into Superboy, can we just touch on the fact that Superman, started in the comic, and he did develop. The character changed, and like through the radio show and such, a lot of the stuff that we consider to be classic Superman came in through these different sources. It wasn't just all established at once. I think Kryptonite, for example, came in through the radio show, and there's other various characters. I don't remember, Ruffy, was it Lois? No, Lois was in the comic, I think. But who came in the radio show? There was a significant character, wasn't there?
Dude, I had like 3 hours to prepare for this. I have,
there was a lot.
It all blurs together. The whole idea of truth, justice, and the American way, that was not in the comics until it first showed up in the radio show. So,
right.
The radio and TV, characters that were created or concepts that were created there, it's like, oh, this is a great idea. Let's put it in the comic. So you're right in that all of that, all the different multimedia, blurred over.
Yeah.
So the radio show was 1940 to 1951, I believe.
Yeah, that sounds right. And the point is, the Golden Age stuff was kind of, it wasn't just, it's in tight control by one thing. It kind of came together over time. And, you were starting to talk about Superboy and all the different things. By the time the Silver Age rolled around, things were under much tighter control at DC, I think. Even though there were, TV shows and other, lots of crossovers and such. The Superman group at DC Comics was they were, I think, kind of the tip top in those days. So we're talking in the Silver Age, we're talking late 50s, early 60s kind of thing.
Yeah. So I mean, so you've got a radio program going on from 40 to 51. You've got a film in some animated shorts between 41 and 43, right? You've got the first.
Oh yeah, those are awesome. Yeah. By the way,
the first live action, which is a movie in 48, right, with Kirk Allen as the thing, and then there's a B movie released in 51, starring George Reeves, not Reeve, but Reeves, and it was intended to promote a television series. There's a television series as well, I believe. So there's a lot of there's a lot of live action Superman very early on in the I mean, we barely got TV, and they're doing TV shows about Superman. That kind of
Yeah,
thing.
and again, it seems strange to us from this point because
Yeah.
we were all born way after all this happened. This was like when our parents maybe were kids. Is like you said, this is 2 years after Superman's created, where these things are going on, where they have multimedia.
Yeah.
So
I was surprised when I first learned of that. That they had a TV. They had movie shorts. I mean, that's that's a perfect way to do it with Flash Gordon and all that kind of stuff. They did a lot of that stuff. But yeah, I mean, I was surprised when I first had learned about that. Thinking Christopher Reeve was the first sort of big budget, first time they did it, because thinking they didn't have the technology to do it on a television show, right? Like, how would they do that before the 70s? But
right,
they found
and
a
I
way.
guess we should mention the names of Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster, who created Superman. There's been a lot of lack of credit for them over the years, I suppose. But obviously, doing acknowledgement, and just as a note, they did credit them in the movie, and I was happy to see that.
Yeah, they've been doing that since they settled it. They do that all the time.
Well, I know, I won't get into it, but I know that before the film was released, there was some concern as to whether, court action was going to stop it or not. I don't know what the settlement with the family
Really?
was, but like you as well, Cam, I was pleased to see, and I'm sure they didn't have any choice, but, acknowledging the family.
Yeah, I thought they did that. That was all settled after the various the Batman versus Superman, and that controversy was all taken care of during that.
Not completely.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess I'm wrong. Yeah.
Sorry, just to kind of put in another bit here is so there was an editor at DC Comics, kind of a legendary character, let's say, on his own, and he was the Superman family editor, and as such had a lot of power. And he started in the 40s, I think, running Superman basically. And just side note, we recently, Jim Shooter died. Mort Weisinger was the guy who hired Jim Shooter for his first comic work on Superboy. Sorry, that was a little comic aside.
So do you want to talk a little bit about Superboy? Someone says, was it Michael? Don't talk about Superboy, but I want to just mention him. He was pre-crisis. They're trying to sell out of comics. So they're doing whatever they can.
Yeah, Ruffy, I'll let you take it over, but I'll just lead into it. Is pre-crisis, Superboy existed, meaning Clark Kent as a boy did have a alter ego, and then I guess you could take it from there. And
well, it was just, I mean, call it what it was, just Superman Jr. He's
Right.
in Smallville. He's got, he doesn't have Lois Lane. Well, I'm not going to get down into the weeds, but you had Lana Lang, you had his boyhood friend Lex Luthor, and it was a money grab. I mean, I'm not saying there weren't some great stories. Without Superboy, you don't have the Legion of Superheroes,
right.
But it was designed to appeal to a different audience. Younger kids, and let's talk about Superman's adventures when he was a boy. But the problem is that then you're telling prequels. I mean, it's the same issue with any prequel. Okay, well, now stuff that we thought we knew is now changed because this happened in Superboy. Well, no one cared because it was all the multiverse Earths. I just know as a kid, whenever I grabbed Superman, it's like, okay, well, which story is this? Is it, which Superman are we talking about here? And it was difficult at times to keep up with things, and then you bring Superboy into the mix, and it just got even more confusing. And again, I'm not saying they weren't entertaining stories, but it's just like there was no consistency to the character.
If you're looking at it from you want a consistency. So is Superboy is not existing at the same time as Superman. It's just, hey, look what he did when he was a young kid, right?
That's right. Yep. And Outpost Nerd is asking there. He says, so Superboy was in Smallville with the super suit. Yes,
Yes,
he was.
Yep. But that conflicts with some some portrayals, like I mean, even in Christopher the Christopher Reeve movie, he's obviously doesn't have his full powers when he's a teenager. He can run, but he can't fly yet. He's still right. So,
yeah, he had super strength since he was a baby, in fact.
Yeah.
And
so
they demonstrated he had super speed and stuff. You're right.
Yeah. But he doesn't have his full powers yet, right?
Well,
he hadn't discovered it really. I mean, again, keep in mind, Superman originally couldn't fly, in the Golden Age. So it was probably a nod to that,
Right.
is my guess.
Oh, yeah. He's running into the train and stuff.
Right. And the thing to remember about the Superman movie is when he arrives at the Fortress of Solitude, he's still, a young man. And when he flies
18.
out for the first time,
he's 30 years old.
He's 30 years old. He's been training for the last 20 years with Jor-El, and now he's ready to take his place as Superman. He's got the suit, he can fly, he's got all these other powers. So, I don't know if Superboy would have existed in the Christopher Reeve.
No, it definitely did. It definitely didn't.
Yeah,
if they would have chosen to go that route, instead they went, Richard Pryor and Superman 3 and Nuclear Man and Superman 4.
Well, it's kind of interesting though, because that version was what John Byrne eventually went with. It was more similar to the movie, in terms of his childhood and everything. Where he knew he had powers and they kept it hidden, but he didn't act as a costumed hero.
Yeah, back you didn't need a degree to do journalism back in those days. Boost nerd, and they didn't call them journalists; they called them reporters. You just go out and report the news. Never
trust anybody with a journalism degree.
Yeah,
anyone can be a journalist. Trust me.
Mm-hmm.
But say you're a reporter. I'm going to report the news, not journal it. So
certainly didn't have any journalistic integrity. He got his job at the Daily Planet by reporting on himself.
That's right.
Which they meant. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Don't.
Sorry. Okay. So do you want to talk a little bit about Man of Steel, the sort of the switch?
Well,
so I think we covered. Have we covered the pre-crisis enough?
No.
Okay.
Just for a bit. Last week we talked about Superman a bit about in a Is It Sci-Fi segment, and Ruffy, maybe you can come in. We concluded that Superman is sci-fi.
Well, hold on. Cam concluded that.
Oh.
And if you agree, then I agree with Cam. But if you don't, then I agree with you. Anyway, go ahead.
Okay. Okay. I was just going to reference Silver Age Superman stories that were very much in the sci-fi genre.
Oh, no question. Silver Age Superman is definitely sci-fi.
Yeah. A lot of, sci-fi monsters and space-oriented stuff. And I'm not sure exactly when it came.
High-tech gadgets.
Very much so.
Projectors, things like that.
Yeah. The tech
ships.
Which, Ruffy, you can let me know
different kinds of kryptonite,
Yeah. Let me know if you agree, but I made the claim that Superman, if he had no powers, he would still be formidable due to the technology he has access to, Kryptonian technology.
Yeah. Silver Age, I'd agree. Yeah, because they really leaned into the science of Krypton and all the gadgets and different things. Yeah, I mean, because that's where really, and Byrne carries a lot of that over, in my opinion, into Man of Steel, as far as, just the science and technology culture of Krypton. So yes, I'll stop babbling and say I agree with you, Cam. I know it hurts me to say that, but yeah, I agree with you.
All right.
Well, let me ask about that. Like, cause I've, I think I read a book version of the 78 film Christopher Reeve when I was a kid, and I remember reading a part that wasn't in the movie where Superman, he's not Superman yet. Clark Kent is he only sleeps like it stuck with me. He's only sleeping an hour a day because he doesn't need to, and he's up all night. And Pa Kent comes in one time and he's studying, like he's looking ahead. He's science. He's got a microscope. He's looking at he's got a bug or something under the microscope, and he's like constantly learning, even as a kid. And the fact that so he's not known to be super intelligent, so to speak. It's the he's brawn versus brains, but he's actually Clark Kent and Superman is actually quite intelligent.
Silver Age, there were several stories where he used his super intelligence to solve a problem versus his super strength. So, it was there in Silver Age.
Yeah, and I thought I remember him, explaining some story that I read one time where he's like, you have to. I don't know if he's explaining to Supergirl or some other superhero or something like, you can't just go and catch this. Like if there's a plane falling, you can't just go and catch it, right? Like it's you'll rip it apart. You've got to hit it at the right angle, and he's sort of going through these things, and we're seeing his internal monologue or his thought about where to catch the plane so it won't rip apart, and like physics, all that aspects of it when he's doing his things. He's not just just fly up and grab it. Yeah, no problem, right?
Yeah, and there is another. I mean, it got clownish at some point. Where he had super everything basically. I mean, again, this is Silver Age stuff. It's like, I mean, he has super ventriloquism, for example, but it gets a lot crazier than that. I don't remember off the top of my head, but it was just like within a story. It's like, oh, he has super XYZ, and that solves it. It's it got pretty wild.
It was the ultimate Deus Ex Machina. Yep. As far as how do we solve this problem? Well, it's super ...
And that's funny because I think this is kind of an aside, but I think that kind of turned me off of DC and more towards Marvel when I was younger because Superman was just overpowered and he could just do anything, and you're like, well, that's not a good story.
It was and that's a big problem. That was one of the reasons why they wanted to do this reboot. Was for that exact reason. It got ridiculous. He literally could easily move moons. Or planets even.
Yep.
And of course, the infamous scene in Superman 1978. Where he turns back time by flying around the Earth and making it spin backwards, which of course has it's ridiculous.
Nothing to do with time.
Right. But that was very much in line with the stories of that Silver Age era.
Yeah. I wanted to one other question. What about the the aspect of the Kryptonians being not high, like one of the more advanced races in the galaxy, and maybe I don't know, maybe not feared, but at least treated warily because they're quite advanced with their technology, and they're a bit of a. I mean, there's been some hints in some of the movies. It hasn't been fully, some of Man of Steel movie. Where it's hinted that the Kryptonians are a little bit martial and not afraid to throw their weight around militarily, let's say.
Yeah, Ruffy, you can answer what you know about this, but I think in the Byrne version, the Kryptonians were like isolationists, like almost xenophobic.
Yes.
And I'm not sure before that. In the original thing, I think they were kind of benevolent. It was like, oh, look, space people, live on a futuristic planet. And I don't know if they went into it. I'm sure at some point they went into it, but between those two things, I'm not sure about all the variations.
Well, the problem with the Golden Age as it developed, Jor-El, benevolent scientist, wants to save his son's life, shoots him off to Earth, and there's not much more that comes out of that other than, it continues that, they were an advanced race, scientifically based, but they didn't really get a lot into a consistent portrayal of the culture. And that got even worse in the Silver Age. And, one of the things that I put in my thesis that actually continued to be a problem in the Silver Age is how many people besides Superman actually survived the destruction of Krypton. It seems like the only people who died in the destruction of Krypton were Superman's parents and a few close neighbors, because otherwise, you always had Kryptonians showing up, and then you had Krypto and Streaky the Super Cat and Beppo the Super Monkey and Titano the Super Gorilla and Comet the Super Horse. And, and so again, you didn't have that consistent portrayal really of Kryptonian society. It's like, oh, okay, for this storyline, let's make them harsh isolationists. For this storyline, let's make them, oh, you're from you're from Krypton. We have a history with your planet, and it's terrible. And and with Man of Steel, it really became, as Cam said, more of a highly advanced race, but very antiseptic.
Yeah.
The as Cam pointed out, they didn't have babies the natural way. It was birthing chambers and all these other things, and so that for a while after Man of Steel was fairly consistent, but and I won't get into a movie spoiler, but and then you had the Phantom Zone and Zod, and it's just always been a mess at times, and for a while Man of Steel fixed that, but
yeah, well,
DC just
that's a general problem with Post Crisis, is like, just very short version, Crisis fixed all this and set them, in my opinion, masterfully reset the universe. It before the days of reboots happening all the time. This was like a strange thing, and it was done very well in story. And Superman was part of
Crisis
that.
on
And
Infinite Earths.
yes,
talking
from
about, right.
from 1985. Everybody should read that, by the way. But and then Byrne was very firm. It was like, Superman is it. He is the last son of Krypton. There aren't others. He's
there's
it.
no dogs, there's no cats, there's no Supergirls.
That's right.
I read a story. This is a couple years. But I still, as an adult, a couple years ago, maybe 10 or something. And they find I don't know if it's a Kryptonian city that Brainiac
Kandor.
shrunk down or something.
Kandor.
And is it Kandor?
Yep.
Anyway, and it's placed. It's specifically placed on the opposite in our solar system, opposite Earth, in the same orbit, so we can't actually see them. But it's full of Kryptonians, and Superwoman comes out of that, and that sort of thing. I'm not sure if this is just a one-off or like an Elseworld type story, but I remember reading one of those ones, like 10 or 15 years ago. So I don't know.
Well, honestly, it's hard to keep track of, because, again, they did a good job and redid this. And by, shortly after Byrne was off of the books, I think they started mucking it up again, and then since the original Crisis on Infinite Earths, there's been 3 or 4 other Crisis storylines that just absolutely blew everything up and went back to as big a mess.
Infinite Crisis, Re-Crisis, the New 52. The New 52 is when I was out before then. But it just,
so, they messed it up again, but it was an excellent refresh. So I'm sorry, Snob, I kind of went off onto the Silver Age stuff. You wanted to get back to...
I was kind of going on I was on a...
And real quick, someone asked a question: were Silver Age Daxamites related to Kryptonians? In the Silver Age comics, there was a suggestion that there was a tie that the Daxamites left, and so they had similar powers under the Yellow Sun, but Daxamites, for whatever reason, were allergic to lead. So, but there was a connection in the Silver Age between Daxamites and Kryptonians.
Yeah, and that gets into the Legion of Superheroes territory. And Superboy and Legion of Superheroes is a whole nother thing that we could probably set aside right now, except to say that it was a problem that had to be dealt with post-Crisis, because Legion of Superheroes continued to exist. Legion of Superheroes is set in the 30th century.
Yeah.
So Superboy basically, went into the future, and the Legion of Superheroes was founded on the legend of Superboy, or Superman. And so, he went into the future as Superboy and joined the Legion, and it's this whole kind of time loop stuff, a lot of complication. But the fact that there was suddenly no Superboy created a problem. And spoiler, it involves a pocket universe.
It always does.
Yeah. Okay. So I thought that. Go ahead.
Yes. I was going to ask a bit about crap. I forgot my question now. Okay, go ahead, Cam. It'll come to me.
I was just going to say I kind of took a sidetrack there, but I think we were going to start talking about the John Byrne, the modern, modern as of 1986, the shift, the point that
Right.
Ruffy talked about, where things, you've got before and after, and how that impacts the character.
Oh, okay. Quick. I remember a question. Quick question for that. Now, the DC animated, recent DC animated movies. I'm not sure if you've seen them, Cam, or Crisis on Infinite Earths. It's a 3-parter. It's like. Does that follow the Crisis on Infinite Earths book storyline fairly closely, or is it?
I haven't seen it. I haven't seen it yet.
I'm simply going to say I was displeased with the adaptation.
Oh, really? Okay, so it doesn't follow it very.
Yeah,
they make some major changes that for me do not work. Okay. But I get it, because it's almost like unadaptable,
Well, is there a reason to adapt? I mean, is there a reason to present that story without trying to reboot the universe? I mean, does it have any relevance whatsoever if you're not coming from a pre-crisis world?
Well, they are, aren't they? In the.
Like, I don't. I have no. I didn't see.
Isn't it just the? It's not just the
Flash. The Flash storyline is truncated.
Okay.
The big bad is truncated. It just, there are characters central to the story in Crisis on Infinite Earths that don't even appear in I just finished watching this a month ago.
Yeah, because it's been on recently.
Yeah, it just,
and they just made it. It's fairly,
yeah. So for those who have not, who are like, what is Crisis on Infinite Earths? You're welcome to watch the animated version, but it isn't the story. You need to read the actual anthology. You need to read the whole thing. Don't rely on the animated version for your education in Crisis on Infinite Earths.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned that, Ruffy, because I recently suggested to a young person to do a deep dive into it, and the fact that quick aside, Crisis on Infinite Earths was my stepping into comic collecting in a major way. I started collecting. I collected like G.I. Joe before that and a few other miscellaneous ones, but it was the month that issue 2 of Crisis on Infinite Earths came out is when I started comic collecting in general, and it was drinking from a fire hose, right? It's, I mean, it was filled with characters from the previous 50 years and everything, and it was awesome. So I suggest no one be deterred by that. Just embrace it if you really want to jump into the history of DC Comics.
So the animated film, it generally follows but it's just, it doesn't give you enough. Is that what you're saying?
It follows the idea.
The ideas, okay.
The central idea that, something is destroying the multiverse, and we have to stop it. Yeah. And that's all I'm going to say for those who aren't familiar with the story. But that's about it. I mean, there are some, important plot points that do still happen, but anyway.
No, I don't want you to get
no. It's not
so
worth wasting time on.
Yeah. I'm that's all I know. I mean, I haven't read Crisis on Infinite Earths, but I've seen.
Shame on you.
Anime. Shame on me. I have to read it. Yeah, but I mean, I kind of get the gist of it. That there's, like you said, is a multiverse, but I'm obviously missing important parts of it. All right. I'll have to correct that.
It's only 40 years old. You can.
I can get into that.
Yeah,
it still holds up. It's a 40-year-old story that still holds up.
Yeah, I'm always looking for good stories. Always. Okay, so we want to get into post-crisis, or do you want to talk about Man of Steel specifically? A little bit about that, how they set the stage for the change, and
yeah, kind of the same thing. So, Ruffy, you could talk about what John Byrne's mandate was and his ideas, and I mean, we kind of touch on it a little bit, but you could go through it in a more orderly way if you like.
Well, the easiest way to sum it up is, he was given the job of relaunching DC's, and apologies to the Batman fans, relaunching DC's flagship character.
Right.
And doing so in such a way that made him more relatable to the general public.
Right. And the key, the hinge on which all of this turns is the different perspective that Clark is now the person, not Superman. Clark isn't the mask that Superman wears. Superman is a mask that Clark wears.
Yep.
Which is, as you said, opposite of what it was prior to that. And it seems like a small thing.
No, that seems big to me. Like, I'm like thinking about it, and I'm thinking, wow, that is kind of, yeah, that's big, because the dichotomy between, I mean, there's always been this. After I saw the movie yesterday with my buddy, we talked about this, and he said that, I mean, Superman is Superman because of his genetics or his upbringing, right? So this is kind of
nurture versus nature.
So and that's what it is, right? Like, he's switching from nature to nurture. Is that, would that be correct?
Absolutely?
Like Burn is? Okay.
Yep.
All right. That's
absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Go ahead.
Well, with this came all of these different changes. Like we said, Superboy had to go away because Clark, he didn't wear in the Superboy eras. Clark wore glasses, which as a kid, in the post crisis he didn't. He was, and the other thing was, if you remember from the 1978 movie, he was like the equipment manager or something for the football team, because he knew he had extraordinary abilities. John Byrne went right for that in the first issue of Man of Steel. Clark is the football hero. He's the star player of the football team, and his dad, Pa Kent, calls him out on it. Is like, this isn't right. You're not competing fairly, and he's like, well, go ahead.
But to be fair, Clark didn't know why he was so good at football.
That's true. Because he didn't know his origin.
Because Pa Kent says, there's something I have, after the big football game where he wins the game practically by himself, there's something I have to show you.
Really?
And he shows him the escape pod from Krypton.
Yeah.
So he doesn't know anything until he's
in high school.
15, 16, 17, something like that, in high school.
Yep. Yeah, it was it was his senior year, right?
He didn't even know he was adopted. He didn't even know he was adopted.
Right. Yeah, so Pa Kent kind of drops this bombshell on him. And they show this, and that actually that's also the first appearance of Kryptonite. It was basically a fragment from Krypton that was stuck on the ship, and the whole nature of that was changed too. It basically, well, I don't know, was that the original? It's the way that it was in the Byrne version was the planet was fusing and creating a new element or something, a radioactive element, kryptonite, as it turns out, that was killing all of them. And as he was escaping, part of a shard of the planet got wedged into the ship, and that's how kryptonite ended up on Earth as well.
But we don't see that until much later. But,
I thought that he got because they were looking, he had it hidden, like buried under the barn or something, and he got woozy. It was like, he kind of got sick.
Yeah, you're right. And
they didn't know what it was, but I think they showed it, like, the characters didn't discover it, but we as the audience saw it, I think.
You are,
or at least.
Yep. I failed you. You are correct.
All right. So then, they left and he recovered, because that the way kryptonite works is well, the way Superman works is he's basically a solar power battery. He absorbs yellow solar energy, and it supercharges his cells, and that's the energy that powers all of his powers, and kryptonite drives that out of them, essentially. So and well, I don't want to say, this is referred to in the movie as well, but that's and John Byrne, through this series and moving into the regular series, he really explained how all of this works mechanically. You know, it's like the whole nature of Superman and how his powers work, and like they changed. I guess I should let our guests talk about this, but you want to talk about how
No,
um,
you're doing really well. Keep going.
it's
You know,
I do love the series.
other than you get rid of the 12 different kinds of kryptonite. You got one. Well,
Right.
at least for a while anyway. There's no red kryptonite. There's no blue kryptonite. There's no. It's like you
Right.
said. There's a very. It's
A tiny amount
it's
of
really
kryptonite.
it's really bringing the Superman story back to Earth as
Mhm.
far as being. And this isn't a great phrase to use, but as far as being plausible,
Mhm.
it's easier to suspend your disbelief that, okay, well, maybe a rock from his home planet would make him weak, but there
Well,
aren't 12 different colors kind of thing. So
yeah, and as I and that was, and they even explained why that would happen is
yep,
because that was the thing killing them in the first place. The thing that also caused the planet to blow up was what was also fusing kryptonite and creating it. You know,
yep,
as a kind of an artificial element.
That
But
always bugged me a little bit because I'm like, okay, so this planet exploded and it's like a couple galaxies away, and then there's kryptonite falling all over Earth. Like, come on.
right, right.
That doesn't-
Um,
Anyway,
And so, for example, his invulnerability. You know, before it was just, well, he's invulnerable and bullets bounce off him or whatever. When John Byrne redid it, it's basically he has like kind of a force field that's like basically skin level. You know, just very close to his skin. So that's why like his clothing he would wear is invulnerable, but his cape
his
isn't.
cape is not. Yep, his
Right.
cape can be damaged, but the rest of the uniform doesn't.
Right, because it's you know his force field extends just slightly beyond his skin, and then you know because before that Superman's cape was like super strong as well because of course everything was super you know.
Because his mommy made his uniform.
Right, yeah. Well, okay, so that's okay. So they in Man of Steel again, he's just a regular guy who you know is kind of going about his business, and he decides, well, I'm going to go you know travel the world, whatever, and learn a little bit about it. And he would go around and help. You know, he would save people and such, and you know, just as a normal, you know, uncostumed everything. Um, and then he,
so
well, you want to talk about when he,
this is a Man of Steel, right?
Right.
yes,
And
He's as Cam said, he's traveling the world and
so is this kind of referred to in like Cavill's Man of Steel
it's
a
similar
little
to
bit,
that for those
somewhat?
that have
yeah,
seen that where
they took it from that, yeah,
he's going around and saving things and fixing things, but nobody notices who it is. Ma and Pa Kent have all these news clippings, floodwaters diverted, bridge holds till last minute, you know, workers escape just in time, and they know that it's Clark, but nobody else does. But
Yeah.
when the space plane that Lois is on has an issue and he saves it and everybody else, and he lands, with the plane, then he's absolutely mobbed by everybody. This is the his he's been exposed publicly, and
right, his real
and
face,
his real face, and he's he doesn't know what to do. He's like, I almost has a nervous breakdown kind of thing. And
he goes home,
he goes home and he's talking to his parents, and they're like, well, we have an idea. And that's how Superman the superhero is created. He
well,
works with his mom to create his uniform, and they come up with the glasses for the Clark Kent disguise and
well,
everything else.
yeah, there was one, well, an important part is he just kind of shows up and they unannounced and they find him there and he was freaked out like you said, like
Yeah.
almost nervous, and he's like, they all wanted a piece of me, and it's like, so now I think they very masterfully showed that it's like, I can't just do this, I have to have a life, because again, he has the mindset of a normal human. He's not Superman, he's Clark Kent, and he's just a normal guy who happens to have these abilities,
And he's trying to help people. Yeah.
right.
Yeah, and he says to his parents, they've taken everything you've taught me, and in just a few minutes are taking it away from me, and I don't know how to deal with it. And Pa Kent's like, I have an idea. And then the next the next chapter, they're working on the super suit.
Right. And now the one thing I really didn't like about it is that the symbol wasn't Kryptonian. It was just something they came up with, I think, right?
Initially, obviously
Yeah.
that's been retconned in several iterations, but yeah.
Right. And again, that Superman crest was very specific, and you could see in the movie it's very different now. It's okay, I should say the one that was in Man of Steel was the one that was also pre-Crisis that became very specific. The original one was just kind of like a stylized S, the Golden Age. So it was, the one that I love the most, which is in the Man of Steel and before, is not the original.
Right.
So,
The one, the S that's used for the Man of Steel is essentially the Christopher Reeve S.
right. And what you're showing in your avatar is
Yes.
this kind of I don't know I'm not sure when that was established. I'm sure it was in the Silver Age. It wasn't Golden Age, but it was the Silver Age, and it was there for quite a long time, and I'm not sure if they still use it in the comics or not. They not 100% sure about that. It might have changed. It has changed at times back and forth, but anyway,
Right.
okay. Oh, hey, Weatherman.
Hey,
Thanks
Weatherman.
for coming.
Thanks for coming by.
I'm sorry. So, yeah, and then so that was basically the first issue is where they established this suit for him, and like you said, the glasses and everything, and then this is all one issue of this series, and then through the next ones they kind of went into different aspects. What was the second one about Lois?
Yeah, when they get into Superman, he shows up in Metropolis and he's doing all these things, and Lois is kind of following what's going on, and she's trying to get the story, and if I recall correctly, Superman actually sits down for an interview with her in her apartment. I think she's just gotten out of the shower. She waltzes into Perry's office and says, "Hey, I've got the story of the century here." And Perry White is like, "Well, I already have it. Let me introduce you to our newest reporter, Clark Kent."
Yeah, he scooped her, and
He scooped her.
She was
Oh,
pissed.
she was pissed.
Yeah, for a long time. It's like she really held it against him for a long period of time.
Yep.
And then that was so they then each issue they deal with a new thing. I think the third one they went into Lex, introducing
Batman.
Batman was the third one. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, and this was another difference, right? Because before pre-crisis, Batman and Superman were best friends, right? World's Finest. That was their comic, and they were best friends. There was no dark. There was the Dark Knight, but it was you didn't have the brooding Batman at this point. You did have a brooding Batman at different times. Batman's a whole nother story where he goes up and down for his various incarnations, but they were best buddies.
What I don't know though is what did they do with Batman post-crisis before his appearance in Man of Steel?
Well, it didn't change nearly as much. Batman was at best a soft reboot, whereas Wonder Woman and Superman both had very hard reboots to redo it. I think they were happy with Batman. They did change some things, like for example, Robin was Jason Todd at that time, and they turned him from being basically Dick Grayson Jr., essentially a copy of Dick Grayson's story, 10 years later, to being like a street urchin that Batman picked up off the street, and trained to be Robin and such. So there was a lot of changes in that respect, but not nearly as much. There were some things, and this is when Batman started to become darker, because in the pre-crisis days, he found, who killed his parents and brought him to justice. In the post-crisis, he never found that out. So it was like it was weighing on him more than before. So he was, and that a lot of people point to that as being the thing that really dragged him into the darker end of things. And of course, this is the same era where you had Dark Knight Returns, Frank Miller,
yeah, absolutely.
the future story, and then followed by Batman Year One. So Batman Year One, which came a little bit later, was really more of the reboot of Batman.
Yeah, like
But
this is the mid 80s. Like that's when comics really turned. Like a lot of them turned, not all of them, but some of them turned much darker. Right?
yeah,
You've
86,
got the
87
the
was
dropping of the comics code and you know kind of appealing to an older audience.
right. Yeah,
Correct me
and
if I'm wrong.
the two horsemen of that is Watchmen and Dark Knight Returns.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and and so in relation to Superman here, with as Ruffy is saying, the introduction of Batman is they were much more adversarial. Superman, correct me if I'm wrong, he went to Gotham for some reason. Was basically in Batman's territory, or did Batman come to Metropolis?
Superman went to Gotham City.
Okay,
I don't
and
recall why.
yeah, and so that was, it was kind of like, I don't need you here, kind of thing, as opposed to, oh, we're best friends. I mean, they had obviously heard of each other, because Superman's obviously world news, and Batman is kind of was more of a not nearly as famous, but known to Clark at least. And the interesting thing about that is by the end of that issue, they had each figured out who what their alter egos were. um, there's a scene at the end where Batman thinks he's got him figured out, because Batman was wearing like a lead thing in his mask or whatever, so he couldn't see through it and all this stuff. And I think Batman's like, okay, Mr. Kent or whatever, and Superman's like, sure thing, Mr. Wayne. It was like, he thought he had him one up, but Superman figured it out as well. So it was kind of a clever story, but they remained adversarial, not like enemies, but they weren't close friends for sure.
Right. He one of the things that he was going to do when he went to Gotham was pick up the vigilante,
Right.
and Batman says, "Oh, if you touch me, I'm going to blow up
An
an
innocent
innocent
person.
bystander." And at the end of the story, it turns out that the bomb was strapped to himself. Batman,
Right.
if he was going to blow himself up, but there's just the little comment that where Batman says something to the effect of they agree to disagree on their methods and they're going to keep an eye on each other, but Batman says, who knows, in another reality I might have called him friend, and
Yeah.
it's like, okay, well, let's see where this is going to go eventually.
Yeah, so it was kind of a grudging respect maybe they had at that
Yes.
by the end of it, but it was grudging for sure. And then, okay, so what was the fourth one? Was that Lex then?
Yeah, where you get into, and it wasn't just Superman who experienced a major change in how he was presented. Lex Luthor
Yeah,
in Man of
that's true.
Steel, huge change. He is no longer this, supervillain scientist. He's a
legit
businessman.
Yep.
He's a legit businessman.
Has
And
the biggest LexCorp is a huge conglomerate.
yep.
And he was an aerospace. I think that's where it started out. Was he was an aerospace engineer that had a huge company. Then it grew into a conglomerate.
But as I recall, he stages
He stages a terrorist attack
just to essentially try to get Superman to work for him. And it's all a setup to try to get Superman on his payroll. And at the end of the story, as I recall, Lex goes to jail because of all of it. Superman's like, yeah, I'm not working for you. Here's the proof that you were behind it. Lois helps out a little bit. And
the mayor tells Superman to arrest him. He's
Yep.
like, because they were on a Lex's yacht. He was having a big party on his yacht in which Lois and Clark were invited. And so they were all dressed up in whatever, and then these terrorists attack the yacht, and because he was trying to draw out Superman to show up and stop him.
Yep.
And well, he did, and then it was. I mean, Lex basically said, "Oh yeah, I did this," and the mayor's like, "Nope," because these guys had real weapons and things too. And so he got hauled off to jail, and then it was like, okay, that's it, we're enemies now. It was.
He says you're a dead man. It's not a matter of if, it's when. And then you get into the next chapter 5, where you got Bizarro.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's so. and so Lex is, I don't remember if it was cloning or something, but basically he tried to create his own
Yes.
Superman.
Cloning. Yep.
Yeah. And he immediately failed. It's like, oh, they got, I mean, he looked perfect, you know, it's like, oh, look, he's Superman. And then he, you know, went, you know, collapsed or whatever. It's like you know, it failed as far as they were concerned. But then as it turns out, well, Bizarro became Bizarro, you know, and was kind of off on his own. And, but well, at the end, Superman and him clashed, and he basically disintegrated him. He just like he crumbled into nothing, into dust, right?
Yes, but I also think that Bizarro was. I mean, it isn't specifically stated, but I also think Bizarro was just, like, okay, end it. Because they're fighting, and he is disintegrating, and I think there is some realization. I'm probably reading too much into this, but the one thing that I remember is that Lucy Lane was blind
Oh yeah,
after she's exposed to the dust of the pulverized
it's
Bizarro,
somehow,
she can see again. So
yeah, it somehow healed her. Lucy,
yeah,
not Lois. This is her little sister.
right, Lucy.
Yeah.
So
So this is all what we're talking about now is all from the Man of Steel
Yep.
series,
Yep.
Post Nerd. Yeah. These so it's a what is it like a 6-issue? It was a 6-issue run.
Yep. So that was
Six
5, and
comic
then
book.
and then what was 6?
6 is when he goes back home to Metropolis, and he then essentially, the ghost of Jor-El, for lack of a better term, connects with him and shares with him all of Krypton's knowledge and everything else, and he learns more about his true heritage.
Yeah,
And
his technological ghost. It was some kind of
yes,
recording or hologram. Yeah.
and and then he meets back up with Lana Lang, and reveals himself to her as far as who he was and is, and just like, well, we're just friends and all this stuff. And
Yeah, because Lana was nominally his girlfriend, kind of like not serious, but best friend, girlfriend kind of thing in Smallville.
yeah,
Yeah, and this freaked her out, right? I mean, it was a bomb dropped on her too.
yes,
Although no, she actually figured it out, didn't she?
she had an idea,
Yeah.
but he comes clean with her. And then the other thing that I remember is that you know Superman is actually in physical pain from whatever this technological ghost, and Pa Kent grabs a shovel and stay away from my boy, and
Oh yeah.
bashes the ghost, and all's well that ends well. And then you have essentially the final line where Superman says essentially, I'm Kryptonian by birth, but it's my parents here on Earth that made me human.
Yeah. Yeah, he went home to Smallville. I think you said Metropolis. It was he went home.
Did I?
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
sorry.
back to Smallville, yeah.
Yes, he went back to Smallville.
Yeah. And so then it again, the 6-issue series, you could find it in trade paperback. I'm sure it's probably still in print. And it basically, that's it. That's the reboot. Is again, they did it in story, explaining everything very nicely. Again, the exploration of his powers are really cool. How he flies, and how he can lift things that he does that are, again, you mentioned about the, things coming apart or whatever, how that works as well. And so it DC has never been. They never pretend to be scientific. It's like it's wild pseudoscience, whereas Marvel tries to pretend that they're applying real scientific principles to powers and things like that. And so it was a little bit more towards the Marvel style of explaining things, with this. Of course, John Byrne came from Marvel, so. But yeah, awesome. And then, Snob, where do you want to go from here? Because we just talked about the best Superman story ever.
Well, post crisis, I guess.
Well, they I'll lead into it, and Ruffy, you could talk about it. It's basically John Byrne was doing 2.5. No, I guess he was doing two Superman titles a month. So Action Comics, which became a team up book. It was basically Superman plus someone, and then they retitled. They came out with a new Superman #1, which he wrote and drew, and then the original Superman series was kept the same numbering but changed to the title of Adventures of Superman, and that was that Marv Wolfman and Jerry Ordway that did that?
You know more about that than I do.
Okay, so that was so.
I just know there were 4 titles, and
well, I think there were 3 to begin with, and didn't
3
they
to begin with.
they
But
one?
eventually, you had Action Comics, you had Man of Steel, you had Superman, and then you had Adventures of Superman.
Okay, well, Man of Steel was the miniseries, right? And then they eventually came out with another one called Man of Steel, right?
Right.
Okay.
I think that was I think, don't quote me. I think that was the 4th one that they eventually added, because I know, with the whole Doomsday series and everything else, there were 4 titles running. You got
right.
You got one a week, and the story. The unique thing about that was that the storyline at that time continued through all 4 books, even though you had different authors and different artists. The same storyline was continuing through the 4 books.
Right. Yeah, well, you're right. So yeah, it was Superman, Man of Steel, and then they eventually added another one, Superman, Man of Tomorrow. So this got crazy as they went on, but and Adventures of Superman eventually turned back into Superman as the title Superman, because again they were getting towards the 600th issue or whatever. They wanted to make a big deal of that and all these different things. But so you basically had the Byrne story that was pretty pretty consistent, and then you had the Adventures of Superman story, which was it was the same story and same continuity that they kept in line, but it was different. Like that's where I think Cat Grant came in that story under the Adventures one, whereas
I forget which book she was introduced in, but everybody, the different writers on the books, this is so blasphemous, but it's like, the different books of the New Testament, it's the same story, but from, and everybody's following the same thing, but, there's a different perspective, a different flavor on things.
Yeah. The Gospels are same story, 4 different tellings of it. Right. Yeah. So they, I read those comics at the time. I was really into it. And they were great stories. It was a great time to be a Superman fan, in my opinion.
Yes, it was.
Let's see. James asking, how's he changed it to his costume? He just wears it under his in this era. He just wears it under his clothes, like under his regular clothes. If I'm not mistaken, he doesn't. The phone booth thing had kind of. They probably had a nod to it at one time or another, but he just flips out of it real quick.
Pulls open the shirt and quick change. Yep. But they never really adequately explain, okay, when you land and you change back into Clark Kent, where are you getting your clothes back?
Well, famously in the old days, he used to have a pocket in his
cape. Yeah.
And he probably had a miniature Phantom Zone projector that he could just pop it out there. And but I'm joking.
It's like the Hulk's pants. You just don't ask.
That's right. You're better off not knowing. And then, of course, okay, so now we had this Silver Age, new Silver Age of post-crisis, where things were really good. They had some great stories. And then, of course, like all things in comics, things started to get weird, and they the marketing people say, hey, we need something here. So Supergirl suddenly shows up, not the real Supergirl, some kind of
Matrix.
Alien. Yeah, right. This creature called Matrix.
Hey, man, don't knock it. I have that entire run.
Well, I'm sure you do. But Lex basically created this Supergirl persona out of this alien and kind of messed with its head and all this stuff. But okay, so then, we're going to spin off into territory I can't cover that well. But essentially, there's all kinds of different stories. The whole reboot of the DC universe fell apart. They started adding in new Earths, and they basically obliterated the cleanup, within I don't know how long before it really started to go to hell. 5 years or something like that, maybe 10.
Well, yeah.
But here we are today. I can't even speak to what it is today, but I know there's multiple Earths again. That's when New 52 was basically 52 Earths. From the infinite Earths that were before Crisis, then they decided they were going to have 52, and they've jumbled a lot of that up. And well, you also, here's the other thing. There was remind me, what happened to Power Girl at that time? There was no Power Girl either, right? Because Power Girl is the Supergirl of Earth 2, pre-Crisis. And then I think they Power Girl did exist, but they retconned her to be like some ancient Atlantis powered hero or something like that. I don't remember exactly what it was, but Power Girl did exist in post Crisis,
Yes.
but not as the Supergirl of Earth 2. And then eventually she went back to being the Supergirl of Earth 2. They came to Earth 1. And that's a whole nother thing. There was a comic called Earth 2. And then another one called World's Finest, which instead of Batman and Superman was Power Girl and Huntress, which Huntress is, in that continuity, the Robin of Earth 2, which was Bruce Wayne and Catwoman's daughter. This spins off into a lot of other crazy things, but what else we want to talk about, Snob, in terms of Superman?
Do you want to we want to look at the different the different iterations of Superman and how he's portrayed. We could look at a couple of some of the TV or movie versions.
Sure.
How they differ from.
Ruffy, you know a lot about the different TV versions.
Well, the first one that comes to mind as far as a post-Crisis Man of Steel portrayal is Lois and Clark, Dean Cain, Terry Hatcher.
Mm-hmm.
Until it got silly, it was, in my opinion, very well done.
Surprisingly well done.
And
why?
Because it stayed fairly close to the idea of Byrne's Man of Steel. You have Ma and Pa Kent as his sounding board, and he is who he is because he was raised as human. You've got the whole, Lois and Superman and Clark. What do you want to call that? Trinity, where she doesn't know because she's the most galactically stupid woman on Earth. But the first season of that was just very well done. And Lex Luthor, who was that? Was that John O'Shea? I can't think of his name.
Yeah.
Was the businessman, and it was well done, and but then budgets are cut, things get silly. You've got Smallville, which
also surprisingly good at the beginning.
Until they got silly, but surprisingly good at the beginning, where and I don't think anything they did in Smallville, was no flights, no tights. He wasn't Superboy, but he was still, saving people and using his powers and learning his legacy and all these other things. So I don't feel like anything that they did in Smallville went against the idea of Byrne's Man of Steel. You had the Superman that shows up in Supergirl on the CW in the Arrowverse, and I didn't like that they jobbed him out to make Supergirl the more powerful of the two. But I really did enjoy Superman's standalone series, even though they kind of retconned the idea of it when they had their whole Crisis on Infinite Earths as part of the Arrowverse, and the CW Superman story ends up being on a different Earth than the original CW Arrowverse. But I thought it was well done. It got a little silly at times, but the wrap up for that show, I'm gonna fully admit I got a little something in my eye there at the end. they did it well. They had to end earlier than they wanted because they didn't want any competition from the with the film. But Tyler Hoechlin, he was a heck of a Superman. I really feel like he was.
So let me just
Yeah.
so Superboy, like Q2 says, Superboy is the sort of the first. It's not really. Well, I guess it is. Sorry, it is post crisis because it's 1988 to 92, and then you've got Lois and Clark from 93 to 97, Smallville from 2001 to 2011, 10 years. And then, of course, the Arrowverse. I'm not sure when that started, but yeah. Okay, just to give a little.
The Superboy series, though, you have to remember was you had John Haymes Newton. Was it George Newbern who was he before John Haymes Newton or after? I don't remember which. Because there were two Superboys, but even though it came out after Crisis on Infinite Earths, it was still the pre-Crisis Superboy.
Okay.
So that's why I didn't get into that too much. I mean, I watched it, but it really wasn't the, in my opinion, the continuation from that delineation line that I mentioned of Man of Steel being, the difference between how Superman was portrayed.
Okay, so why don't we talk a little bit about sort of Lois and Clark versus, how he was portrayed there versus Smallville versus.
The difference between Lois and Clark with Dean Cain was that he's a more mature Superman. I mean, he's just coming to Metropolis. He's just becoming Superman, but he's out of high school. He's traveled the world already. With Smallville, he's still technically in high school, even though he looks like he's 32. He has there is no Lois Lane yet, and it's just the idea of learning about his Kryptonian heritage and those sorts of things. So there's I guess it's just a difference of where he's at in his career as Superman, but it's still, in my opinion, both are still burn versions.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if Cam disagrees with me. He probably will, just on principle.
No, I'll let you stand on that.
What about comparative to the films? You want to? I guess the first one after that would be Brendan Routh. I always get his name.
Brandon Routh, Superman Returns. I thought Brandon Routh did an amazing job as Superman and as Clark Kent. But this was a continuation of the Christopher Reeve version of Superman.
Yeah, very strange continuation of it.
And it was not, yeah, and it was almost okay. You know how The Force Awakens was essentially a retelling of A New Hope.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Attempted.
Superman Returns. I mean, it's the same thing. Lex Luthor. Okay, that's a land grab. And just some of the same beat for beat plot points. It's like, okay, is this a continuation or is this a reboot? What is this? And I think Routh was done dirty because, as Outpost Nerd says, he was a good Superman, but he suffered from bad writing.
Yeah, it was.
I mean, I'll tell you, there were a couple of times, and I was talking about this with a friend of mine earlier today. There were a couple of times in Superman Returns where I got goosebumps with some of the things that they were showing on screen. And I didn't necessarily, I enjoyed the new film 2025, but it wasn't as powerful at times. But overall, Superman Returns was not good, and that is outside of the Byrne Man of Steel, because it's definitively a sequel to Superman 2. they're not counting Superman 3 and Superman 4.
Yeah,
It was essentially a sequel to Superman 2.
yeah. There's some really, there's some real questions about. Yeah, I would generally agree with that assessment. I mean, I thought Routh did a pretty good job in the, as Superman. He had the look and everything, but the script was just whoever wrote that. Give your head a shake. There's so many problems with that. Yeah.
Man of Steel, at times it was Byrne-like.
Cavill,
with Cavill, but Cavill was not allowed to be human. He wasn't, certainly not as Superman. I mean, he was not having a good time. It was like, okay, we want you to portray this as a godlike alien, a tortured soul, who doesn't know where he fits in the universe. And like, well, that's not how he was portrayed in Man of Steel with John Byrne.
Yeah, that's not really Superman.
And that was one of the big criticisms is he's wearing the clothes. He does some of the things Superman does, but he's cold, he's distant. And I don't know if Snyder eventually was going to, after his resurrection in Justice League, if he was going to start allowing him to become, more warm and friendly and human. I don't know.
Yeah, it was an amazing miss. That it's like how do you have this body of work and you don't understand the core of this character? Just completely missed it.
Yeah, like when they resurrect him and they're like, uh-oh, and the look on his face and he's like, do you bleed, sort of thing. He mirroring what Batman said to him in the other movie. Like, you're like, holy geez, this guy's a monster.
Mm-hmm.
All of that was so rushed. I mean, in 3 films, you get, okay, he becomes Superman, he fights Doomsday and dies, and then he gets resurrected. I mean, there was no time for character development.
They also wedged in there the Dark Knight Returns Batman versus Superman story, which is the most, I will stand on this to my dying day, the most moronic misuse of a story ever. The only reason that story is relevant and works is that you had 50 years of them being best friends ahead of that. None of that was established in the DC universe, and they just jumped right to it like complete morons. Unbelievable.
Yeah, I remember seeing that movie and going, "Hey, this is like the death of Superman plus, they're just throwing this all the Dark Knight Returns and throwing us all together like in one movie. Like, does the guy have a bet with somebody that he needs to? How many comic books can you squeeze into your film? Like, is this something like what's going on? Like, why are they doing these huge storylines and just squishing them together like that?
Wasting them. It's like you're just burning, gold. Or I guess you can't burn gold, but you know what I'm saying? It's like you're destroying because you're not treating any of it with the respect that these stories need to develop and be portrayed properly.
I mean, like you could do the death of Superman was a multi comic book series, right? Like it was a couple of issues all together. Like
it
build
played
up
out,
and everything.
It was because Superman was basically the leader of the Justice League. Well, do you want to? Do we have time to talk about that whole?
Yeah,
thing?
It's kind of a little side, but sure, go ahead. Yeah.
Well, the Death of Superman was a big event, and it was, of course, few people believed that it was going to last. I don't know. The general public was like, "Oh my gosh, Superman's dead," and was dying, or was going to die, and they had all these huge stories and everything about it. And it's like, "Oh, Superman's dead." They had the whole, Death of Superman. There was gravestone issue and all this stuff, and it was a pretty good story. That it. Basically Doomsday was, what killed him is essentially an automaton, this creature that it was rooted in genetic engineering of Krypton, right, Ruffy?
Yes, that was eventually revealed years later, but when Doomsday is first introduced, there's no backstory, you have no idea who he is, what he is. He's just
A monster.
think of the
Right.
shark from Jaws. He's just the perfect killing machine.
Yeah, and so again, Superman was in charge of kind of a Joker crew, mostly Joker crew of Justice Leaguers, including Guy Gardner.
Guy Gardner,
I will
yep.
note, but Booster Gold, Blue Beetle, Fire and Ice, and there might have been a few others that I'm forgetting. But this is the second iteration post Crisis, I think, of the major iteration of post Crisis Justice League. And basically Doomsday is rampaging across the country heading towards Metropolis, and the thing has this amazing destructive power, and he basically wipes the floor with the Justice League sans Superman. And so Superman basically comes in, he's trying to stop this thing, and I mean it was just, I mean, how many issues did that fight go? I mean, it was probably 6 or 7 issues or
something like that.
And the final issue of it was like just all these splash pages of this this knockdown drag out fight with Superman. And again, we talked about Superman is a battery, a solar power battery, and he was just expending all every bit of energy he had was just it's not infinite, he actually can burn through it. He normally doesn't, but he's expending so much in this fight that he's just getting like weaker and weaker and draining his energy. And that's eventually how he gets killed, is he doesn't have any more left, so he stops him, but dies in the process
at the cost of his own life. But
right.
The problem is that Superman doesn't kill, and so if right out of the gate he would have hit him with everything he had, I don't know, but he also is wearing Doomsday down just the same. I mean, you don't get the internal monologue from Doomsday, certainly, so you have no idea, is Superman even doing any damage to this guy? But at the end, they hit each other at the exact same time, and then he dies, and his cape is on this bent piece of metal that looks like a flag, and Lois is holding his body and crying. And I mean, it was a big deal, especially when DC was saying, "Oh no, this we're really killing him. We're killing him forever."
Right.
And
he was gone. Was it a year?
A year.
Yeah. So Superman was out of the picture for a year.
But
a year in real time, or in
no, in real time, because you had each of the four Superman books had their own hero. Man of Steel had John Henry Irons as Steel. You had I don't know which one the Eradicator was in. Then you had Cyborg Superman, and then you had the Return of Superboy, which was, well, we won't get into it, but you had 4 Supermen, and everyone was like, is any of these the real Superman?
Right. Yeah, exactly. You didn't know, and they played it out through the year because they each had a story. And it was like Superboy was, the clone of Superman, basically. And then the Eradicator was
the Eradicator.
Right, but we didn't know that he was the Man of Tomorrow is what he was called. That version was called the Man of Tomorrow, I think. Or no, or was that the Cyborg Superman that was Man of Tomorrow? Well, anyway, one of them was a cyborg. It's like, he has some damaged body. He was real, but it was a cyborg. And the other one was, like a resurrected one or whatever. And then, of course, Man of Steel was, the
John Henry Irons. Yeah.
The guy in a suit, But it played out. It was okay. It was kind of interesting. But then at the end, of course, it was revealed that, he was essentially in a coma, or a near death state or something like that, and he was revived eventually.
He was in a Bacta tank at actually solar powered, well, no, because that's a spoiler. Yes.
But
stop talking.
He came back with long hair
and a black suit.
Right. Yeah. So I'm a big fan of the DC animated universe, and
as you should be.
Yeah, it's like, I think they're the best superhero movies out there, and like a lot of, like, they've adapted a lot of these storylines, and of course stuff like Crisis on Infinite Earths isn't a very good adaptation, as you say. But it's interesting that like a lot of these things are in these they've been adapted into the DC AU in different ways at different times and stuff like that. So
Right, because you mentioned Reign of the Superman, so you watched that one then.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
well done, and it sounds to me like it follows pretty closely to
Yes.
what you described. It's exactly the same sort of thing.
Yep.
And the death of Superman is done in a couple of one or two different DCAU stories. There's like a specific movie which is where he only fights Doomsday and he dies, and Doomsday beats up Green Lantern, and but it's done in a couple. I think it's done once or twice separately. I'd have to go and check for sure, but it's kind of interesting. They've adopted the right, they've done a good job in the animated universe of adapting some of these stories.
Well, and the fallout from the reign of the Supermen in the comic books leads to some big events in Green Lantern. I mean, it was a fabulous time to be a DC comics fan, and then and then it wasn't. So
yeah, it's before the events became just events. It was like they had a purpose in storytelling.
Well, but the problem was that because the death of Superman was an event, and there was constant coverage over it, and people who hadn't picked up a comic book in 20 years were coming in and getting in my way as I'm trying to buy my comic books at the comic book shop.
Those dirty normies.
I know.
God damn.
DC looks at that and goes, "Oh, well, sales are down. How do we replicate the popularity of Death of Superman? Let's do this." And it was all crap.
Yeah.
Well, not all of it, but most of it.
Death of Superman was that 92? I'm just guessing sort of, I thought.
Yeah. I think so. I should know.
Let me double check it.
Yeah, sorry, I'm looking up I'm looking it up myself. I should
92.
looked it up before I mentioned it. December 92.
Yeah.
October 93. Yeah, it was very I mean, I remember hearing about that. I didn't follow it. Okay. So Justice League New Frontier is a fantastic animated movie. Best part: Superman confronting Wonder Woman over the death of soldiers that were assaulting women. Well, I think I've seen the New Frontier. I've seen most of these. We're Cam and I were looking at doing. We haven't done it yet. We're looking at doing a couple episodes about the DC AU and the best films, and like looking and reviewing them and stuff like that. Yeah, but we haven't sorted it out yet. Anyway, sorry, you're going to say, Cam. Please go ahead.
I was just going to comment on Smallville a little bit, just briefly. That was the whole show was centered around kryptonite. it's basically he came to Earth with a meteor shower that landed on a small Kansas town, which later became a large Kansas town, and it was all, Monster of the Week stuff, and him discovering his powers and all that stuff. But it was kind of a fun show for the beginning. It was a show that I thought, this is going to be utter garbage. Someone else watched it and they said, "Oh, you should probably watch this," and it was actually pretty good for a couple of years at least.
Did they not? Weren't they also introducing? And again, I'd see that. I didn't really watch the show, but I'd see clips of it or whatever during ads for it or something. Weren't they slowly introducing different characters as well, like the classic characters that we know would sort of show up and then be sort of inserted into the show, like Lex Luthor would. He goes to the same high school or something like.
Well, Lex was in it the whole time. It was Lex, Lana, and Clark. The very first episode, Lex hits Clark with his car on a bridge, goes over into the water, and Clark isn't hurt, of course, and he saves him, and then saved Lex's life. And it's like, Lex is like, I appreciate, you saved my life and all this stuff, and we're best friends. But it's kind of a creepy thing because Lex was like his friend, but he was also like investigating him and stuff, and like real creepy, kind of stalkerish stuff. But I mean, well played by Michael Rosenbaum. Really a good Lex, in my opinion. What do you think, Ruffy?
I agree until they started getting inconsistent with his, is he friend? Is he foe?
Yeah,
I didn't care which he was. Um, just let's have some consistency. But then you had, um, it gets silly.
well,
They
it
bring
went
in
to
Lois Lane, which doesn't make much sense in the grand scheme of things.
yeah,
And
she was older than they were a little bit, I think, right?
yeah, was
Uh,
she Chloe's cousin? I mean, they kept
yes,
referring
yes.
to her.
Yeah,
Um,
Chloe was the stand-in for Lois, essentially. The reporter at the school newspaper.
Yeah.
Um, and off screen that turned out badly, but Outpost Nerd was trying or says that Lex was trying to figure out how Clark saved him. Yeah, that's how it started out. Is he was basically obsessed with I should be dead, and this kid somehow is involved with me why I'm alive, and so it was all about him pursuing that. And
Was Dr. Fate in Smallville?
yeah, I think he did show up there, didn't he?
Really?
well, you had the whole practically Justice League show up.
Really?
You had the Flash,
What,
you had Aquaman, you had the
why
first
would
Green
Dr.
Arrow,
Fate want to
Cyborg.
visit? Why would
Cyborg.
Dr. Fate want to visit Smallville? I mean,
They brought in a lot of stuff, a lot of Justice Society stuff too.
oh
Um,
yeah.
yeah, so they really went through a lot of the DC universe, but never Batman. They weren't allowed to do
They
Batman,
weren't allowed to do Batman.
right?
No Batman.
Um, and it's too bad because, and again, this was the stupidity of DC, where they have all these disparate shows and things that didn't really connect well. Um, and then it went and did the Arrowverse stuff, which also didn't connect, until it kind of did at some point. Spoiler: Clark from Smallville does show up in an episode of the Arrowverse, or somewhere in the Arrowverse,
Oh,
It
did
briefly.
was
he?
a good scene. It was a
Yeah,
good scene.
it wasn't bad. It wasn't bad.
I
Um,
like so did you RTBS, did you like the Arrowverse? I guess we're calling it, right? The CW verse.
When it first launched, absolutely.
I watched most of I have daughters, so I tried to get them into. We watched most of Supergirl, and it was all right. And then, but around season 4, 5, like 6, it kind of got, and they
Before
lost
that,
I think it was.
interest.
Yeah, I think it was more like
They
season
lost
2.
interest.
yeah,
Yeah,
once
they lost interest around then. I tried to
well,
force them to.
once
I was getting a little bit like I was like, oh, I can't even. I don't know if I can stomach this anymore, even if it's
when it
for
just
my kid.
not to get political, but when Supergirl became super woke,
Mhm.
Yeah,
and they just kept, we're going to die on this hill. It's like, okay.
yeah, they really pushed the politics in that.
Way too far in that show, and
Yeah,
the
they ruined it.
Flash stayed around. I mean, I loved the Flash. I thought the Flash was the well, the Flash
It
was the
was.
best thing to come out of the Arrowverse, in my opinion.
What
Yeah,
about
it was solid for a while.
what about
Until it
Legends
got
of
silly.
Tomorrow?
Oh,
Mm.
that was a guilty pleasure.
Yeah, because it was a
That
little
was a
bit
guilty
weird.
pleasure. First
It was
season, the little show that could, and
yeah.
they stuck the landing, as silly as it was. But then, you know,
I like seeing Routh in there playing a different character.
yeah,
Yeah, that was kind
yeah,
of.
the Atom.
I think I got through. I mean, Legend of Tomorrow season 1 for sure. I saw that and I enjoyed it. Can't remember if I got through season 2. I don't think I got through farther than that. But
Yeah,
Season 2 was okay, and then it started to get a little silly. I kept watching it just out of habit. Um, I've seen all the seasons, but
yeah.
who said Grant Gustin is the only Flash? Yes, you are correct.
I
Grandiose.
I was just waiting. I agree with Green Girl. I don't understand why they didn't use him for the movie instead of that.
Because they wanted to use a psychopath instead, I guess.
Yeah, that instead of an
Stupid.
idiot.
Yes,
Like,
absolutely.
why would you use that
Because,
weird idiot when you had Grant Gustin and he was good? I mean,
Yeah.
I didn't watch The Flash, but I seeing a few episodes, here and there and stuff. Seeing him, I'm like, yeah, this guy's a pretty good young Flash. Like
it was
what's
good
wrong
to
with
be.
him?
It was good for a couple seasons. It got crazy too.
Didn't every character have superpowers by the end of the show?
Pretty much.
Well, and they kept going back to the well one too many times with Reverse Flash and all of that, and the Speed Force and everything else. But
incidentally, just a quick aside, if Ruffy and I have talked over the years as if we had control of the DC universe, right? What was the first thing that we would do? Do you remember?
no.
Hire Jim Shooter.
Well, yeah. Which we can't do now.
Right,
but yeah,
right. But along with that, one of my things would be get rid of the Speed Force. It's dumb as hell. I hate it. It
really
ruins the Flash as far as I'm concerned. Yeah.
Interesting.
Hate it.
It was interesting the way in the Arrowverse they kind of pulled, like they started pulling things together, and they try to get some cross between the shows. I mean, I appreciate them for doing that. I just wish they wrote it a little better.
Yeah, that's
the yearly crossovers were something to look forward to.
Yeah,
but they never quite got to that. I don't think that they got to love. It's like it was too ramshackle, and they had not done enough things right in many ways or for some reason, like Batman couldn't be there or whatever, and there was too many different pieces to really, do it justice, for lack of a better term. But one thing that they did do that was cool was Brandon Routh did play Superman in the Crisis storyline, right? He was the Kingdom Come version of Superman, like old Superman, right?
Yes, he was, and that was a fantastic moment until they screwed him over, and Lex Luthor replaced him as whatever, the scion of whatever. I would like to have gotten to see him play that role a little bit longer. I mean, it was still great to see him in the outfit. I mean, because I go back to my earlier comments on Superman Returns. I still think, even after the new movie 2025, that Brandon Routh is the closest we've come to Christopher Reeves' portrayal of Superman, and he just wasn't given anything to work with.
Yeah, I agree. If there was a better story, I think he would have been remembered as Superman for everybody today, to this point. Still,
absolutely,
he could have been it.
Yep.
What a stupid story. Superman leaves his pregnant girlfriend and goes away for 5 years, and then
unbelievable
just
garbage.
comes back. I mean, this is somehow Palpatine returned level. I mean,
it's bad.
Yeah, this is just. I mean, it's just I can't. These people are paid thousands of dollars to write these stories, and they can't write. What the hell's wrong with them? Anyway, that's another thing.
So you mentioned the
welcome Asta. I don't know if you've been in here before. You should be pretty knowledgeable about some of this stuff. Yeah.
Well, that would have been a far better end to the Flash movie than the way that it ended.
Good point.
I mean, I would have liked that. I would have maybe enjoyed the movie because I hate that actor, that guy. I don't think he's a good Flash either.
He sucks in every possible way. He sucks across the board, and you had to be
personal life and
a sub IQ, 80 IQ person to cast that moron. I mean,
I don't understand how they picked him either. But anyway,
yeah. Oh, okay.
You didn't know Lois was Prego. Yeah.
You mentioned Ruffy. You mentioned the what was the last? It was Superman and Lois. Was that the Arrowverse?
Yes, Superman and Lois. That was after they retcon, Superman and Lois were introduced in Supergirl, and then they got their own show, but they kind of retcon which Earth they were on and some of the backstory. Spoiler: they had kids, and dealing with that dynamic of Lois and Superman being parents.
Yeah, that's still on that show.
No, it is
it's
not.
over now.
No, it's
No,
over now.
it's over. They made him wrap it up.
Oh,
Because
really?
the DC doesn't, for the same reason that you couldn't use Batman on the show, because other Batman things are going on. DC doesn't want anything, taking the spotlight off of whatever their pet project is. So
That just wrapped up though, right? Like
like within
2
the last
seasons?
year, yeah.
Yeah, it was 2 seasons, right? It just wrapped up. Yeah,
Yeah.
because I remember seeing stuff on for it.
I never watched it, but I heard it was good. I watched like the last scene of it, which I thought was awesome. I was like, man, I should have watched this show.
Now, I will not say it was perfect, and there was one season that was like, oh my God, are you kidding me? Where it was just, not great storytelling, but the last season was very well done. I think Michael Cudlitz did a good job as Lex Luthor. I think it's the best portrayal of the Doomsday story. Outside of, and the special effects weren't great, but it was the best portrayal of the Doomsday story in film or TV. And just that dynamic between Lois and Clark, his there wasn't anything to do with his parents, it was just that dynamic, and they had chemistry. That was something that unfortunately Routh didn't have with his Lois Lane.
Who
that
was
wasn't
Lois?
And that wasn't his fault. Kate Bosworth. She was like 22
was it? Yeah,
at the time.
Yeah, there was no
badly miscast.
There was no chemistry. You're right.
But yeah, I mean, I of all the Arrowverse shows, I think that one ended the best. They were given the opportunity. They ended it earlier than they wanted to, but they were at least given the opportunity to end it and end the story, and it worked.
And that brings us to today, the Superman 2025.
Yeah,
which we're probably not going to talk about at this point, right?
Well, we're getting the show's getting pretty long in the tooth there. We're hitting our 2 hours. Just let me say, Asta, welcome. Yeah, man, I don't think I've seen you before. Yeah. Hey, we'd like to, we like engaging in the chat, and we like to talk about this stuff, a little bit of a deeper dive, as I said at the beginning of the show, into these sort of things, not to sort of surface like, this movie bad, this movie good, a little bit deeper than that. So we're building up on that. Superman's big now, so we're trying to, give a little bit more to the audience on, where we were and where we've got to. That's cool. Your former comics, working on Hollywood. Maybe you'd like to be on the show sometime. Maybe we could find something to discuss. If you want to, drop a line in the comments on this, or we have our Discord and that kind of stuff. We talk to people there. You want to contact me? Maybe there'd be something interesting we could talk about. We're always looking for stuff like that. Okay, Cam, you're trying to go into this 2025, the show, the movie we just we've seen it.
Yeah. Well, okay. So I think we probably should hold off. If you want to have a discussion, though, you can't wait until our next episode where we might talk about that. You can see the show from Sci-Fi for Me TV. Wait a minute. Asta, wait. That's...
Whoops,
That's not your name on X, is it? Am I? I might be blowing... hold on, I might be making a fool of myself.
Almost supposedly. So we're at 200. We're 2 hours. We try to keep the show was supposed to be an hour. We often go to an hour and a half sometimes, but lately we've been to 2 hours. We talk too much, but we try to keep it to an hour and a half is my new goal. But yeah, so Jason talked about it. A lot of people are talking about it. I'm kind of interested in talking about the new movie because I had some problems with it. But I heard Cam saying his piece, and without, there were some spoilers when we were talking about a Jason's show. Yeah. And I kind of agree with like I think we're on the same page, Cam, with where we are, the problems of it, and how we felt about it too. I think I kind of agree with your rating and stuff. But yeah, maybe we should talk about that next week. I think I'm not sure how many people we seem to have people who don't like spoilers around here. But yeah, what do you think? You want to Cam weigh in?
I say next week is probably fine.
Well, yeah, we're not going to do it today for sure. We're at 2 hours. That's long enough.
Yeah.
I think you want to do it next week. RTBS, do you want to jump on next week and give
you're pushing.
Give your opinion on this on the movie? Spoilers allowed.
If you want to invite me, I will consider it.
Yeah, okay, consider it. Don't pressure our guests.
So. I kind of just invited you, so yeah. You're kind of invited.
No obligation. No obligation. We can talk about it offline. Of course.
Yeah. No, for sure.
If I am available, I would be happy to discuss the film. Because I have my thoughts and feelings about it as well, being a longtime Superman fan.
Yeah, and I'd be interested to hear your thoughts because of you are a big Superman fan. All right, like I said, definitely not today. We're at 2 hours. That's enough. But I guess we could push things back. Next week we'll talk about the movie. And so just for anybody in the chat who's doesn't like spoilers, see the movie before next. If you can, see the movie before the next show on Sunday, or be prepared for to have certain things spoiled. I mean, we're not going to try to spoil everything, but I think we need to talk about scenes that happen in the movie in order to fully discuss what we like and what we don't like, right? I think you guys would agree. Pretty hard to say, this is good and bad if you can't reference things that happened. So, yeah.
Wait, Snob.
That makes sense.
Yes, I think that's a good idea. There's been a request for the Discord links. I don't know how to properly link a Discord channel.
Yeah, it's a bit of a pain in the butt to do it. I can maybe try to do it here. The problem is when you're doing it, like the Discord links. Well, you can set up a link that lasts for forever, but most of them are set for a certain like 7-day period or something. So let me see here. Anyway, if you go on Discord and you search Sci-Fi Snob, I think I'm the only one there. That's the Discord. But
there can be only one.
See if I can pull out the. I always forget. Copy server ID. Is this it?
Beats me. I depend on Death Shadow for this.
There's a way you can.
While you're looking for that, I will remind everyone that on Wednesday we have a regular show where we discuss. We're doing a complete review of the series Babylon 5. So Wednesday at 11 p.m. Eastern every week we discuss one episode. And we're currently in the beginning of season 2, and we have all of season 1 you can go back and watch, or you can watch a recap episode, all on the Sci-Fi Snob channel, which has grown to a massive 605 subscribers. Thank you all. Please subscribe. We actually need more. So yeah, there's some plugs.
Right on. Let me check my notes here.
Oh, what? As you're doing that, hey, Ruffy, what do you think about Babylon 5?
Lord of the Rings in space.
There you go.
Lord of the Rings in space, really?
Yeah. Yep. That's actually true. There's a whole thing to that, which I haven't brought up in any of the shows, but now Ruffy just spilled the beans. So,
all right, I'll figure it out. I'll drop the links in the did Death Angel Shadow jump out? He always has the links ready, and he always gets the room right.
Yeah, he doesn't like us
because he took off.
Yeah.
Later. So I'll drop the links in the notes after the show there in the description. But like I said, if you're on Discord, you search Sci-Fi Snob, you'll find us. I don't think there's anybody else there. There are two related YouTube channels. Ask the Sci-Fi Snob and Sci-Fi for Me TV. Yes, these are we're good friends with Sci-Fi for Me TV. Well, they got us started, on YouTube and stuff. So yeah, all right. Oh, and I think we've is that it? Do we miss anything? We need promos. Next week we'll do a review of this Superman, this 2025 version.
Yes, and of course we do want to thank our special guest, our Superman enthusiast expert doctor, Dr. RTBS Superman
PhD in Supermanology.
Right.
As much as it pains me to say this, Cam, you're welcome.
Oh, okay. See, no one likes.
No one likes Cam. See,
but it's comforting, that you have that consistency in your life.
That's right. It's nice and see. It's not just me. When you guys are all like, "Oh, Snob's so mean to Cam all the time," and I mean, maybe he deserves it, right?
Yes, maybe.
Yeah, maybe. No. Yeah. All right. Did I forget anything, Cam? Should we end the show?
No, I think that's it. I do appreciate.
I think I did forget something.
Oh no! No, you didn't. Oh, that's right. We forgot to thank our excellent chat, who really had some excellent points they've made throughout the evening.
That is true,
and we certainly appreciate that. And with that, we say good night, everyone. Thank you for coming, RTBS and Snob. I'll talk to you later.
And I really like the chat because our chat's the best. Like, they are very knowledgeable. They get involved. I mean, and we know Cam and I really appreciate that because it's you feel stupid talking to yourself. But no, that's not what I meant when I said we forgot something. We forgot the jokes. We have to end the show with jokes. Yeah.
Well, as I'm a generous kind of guy, I will let RTBS answer your joke inquiries.
Are you okay with that, RTBS? Because it is really Cam's job, right? So he's contractually obligated. But if you want to,
sure,
I'm okay with that. You're okay?
I'll take a shot.
All right. Well, let's, I got some really good jokes this time. So usually I only used to do the bad ones for Cam, but since we have a special guest, we'll actually do the good jokes. Let me see here. Oh, okay. What is Superman's favorite sporting event? It's pretty easy.
Superman's favorite sporting event?
Yeah.
I don't know. What is Superman's favorite sporting event?
The Super Bowl.
Ba-dum-bum.
Same as the one that, all Americans love the Super Bowl. Come on. Let's see here. Why was baby Superman the only kid at the playground?
I have no idea. I'm sorry. I'm not as useful as Cam.
Oh, Cam never gets them either. The sign on the playground said supervision required. Get it? Supervision. You can't leave your kid.
That's actually a good one. I will give you credit.
He likes that one. See?
I like
Finally,
that one.
We have someone on the show who appreciates my jokes.
I'm actually going to use that one.
That maybe I should have said that last. What did Superman call his dog? This one's not very good.
What did Superman call his dog?
And it's
Dead?
Not crypto. No. Lex Woofer.
Okay.
You like that one, Cam?
I did.
All right.
That was not funny.
It made me laugh.
All right, last one. Why doesn't Superman go out after dark?
Because he's the last son of Krypton?
Close, kind of. Because he's afraid of Kryptonite. Get it? Kryptonite.
Well, 1 out of 4 is not bad.
1 out of 4 is really good for this show, actually. It's usually 0 out of whatever. But yeah. No. All right. Everybody, thank you for watching the show. We're going to do the outro, and it's probably not going to work. At least we're not going to get sound anyway. But we'll fix that up for next time, hopefully. Anyway, thanks, everybody, for coming out. And I hope you enjoyed the show. And hopefully we'll see you on Wednesday or next week. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.